Today, our host is Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen Systems, and I'm going to turn the presentation controls over to Don.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. For some reason, there we go. Is the slide showing now, speaker bios?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen, as Stephanie said, and with me today is Jeff Benedict, who heads up Evergreen's ITSM service practice and is a phenomenal solutions architect to boot. Here's today's agenda. Over the past year, we've run about 40 service catalog workshops across the U.S., and one of the common questions we are asked is, what design principles should we use to create our service catalog? Our primary goal today is to share the 5 design principles that we use every day at Evergreen to build beautiful customer-centric experiences and give you a few key takeaways that you can use in your planning and activities now. Beyond that, we'll briefly demonstrate our advanced user-centric service catalog that we have developed on the ServiceNow platform. We'll answer some questions if you have any, and that will wrap us up. At any time during the webinar, you may submit a question using the Q&A function. Let me tell you just a little bit about Evergreen. We are a U.S.-based consulting firm, and we've worked with hundreds of upper mid-market and Fortune 1000 companies to help them improve their IT service management execution. We are a full lifecycle firm, or in the words of one customer, you have both process and technology in one company. We are also one of the leading ServiceNow partners and have over a decade of domain experience in each of their portfolio areas. But I hope you don't mind me saying, so what? For the most part, ITSM has been done the same old way for the past decade. Incident, problem, change, and a little bit of knowledge. And at the end of it, while we may be running a little bit better, so what? What about the customer? For the past 2 years at Evergreen, we've been working very hard to change this and focus from the customer in, not from IT out. Our inspirations have been Apple, Amazon, Google, and others. And we see both IT and the customer's experience evolving hand in hand, not as an afterthought. On the left side of this picture here, IT is maturing, going up this arrow, going from silos of IT activities to delivering IT services to being the engine behind delivery of any services. On the right side, the customer experience is evolving from what I call not really very good to being able to access a thoughtful and complete portfolio of IT services to ultimately being empowered by a true digital workspace driving their productivity and creativity. This is a Forrester report as of May 2014 that looks at 161 customer inquiries over the past year around Service Catalog. And they've deduced, as well as we have, that there's quite a high level of interest in it today. If we look at the key points that were in this report, the Consolidated Global Services Catalog is rising in importance. And in the engineering and design category of inquiries, Forrester said the consolidation of catalogs within an organization was the most popular topic. Nearly half those questions were about building out a global service catalog. The second point, those of us professionals in this space are more interested in strategy than implementation. About 49% of the inquiries to Forrester touched on catalog marketing and strategy concerns like stakeholder communication and catalog pros and cons. Last point that really sort of stood out from my perspective, if you're not planning or have not yet implemented self-service, Forrester says, get started now. And self-service was the most popular service catalog related inquiry topic. Nearly a quarter of all inquiries in 2013 revolved around self-service, and according to Forrester, the age of the empowered customers here. So here's the most interesting stat, though. If you look at this graphic about continuous service improvement, you can see half of the respondents said that customer experience and satisfaction was the most important. And we believe that's, spot on for the right focus, and that's what we're talking about today. So here's the last data point, which is only a couple of hours old. Of the 150 of you who signed up for this webinar, 40% of you say you have a service catalog project planned in the next 12 months. That's pretty astounding. So I want to make one quick point. from a past webinar we recently ran on service catalog versus request catalog. It's another question that gets frequently asked at the workshops. And just to touch it on a high level, the request portal is a singular sort of transactional tool supporting everyday IT needs. It's what IT traditionally has thought of when they think about an IT service. It's just a self-service wrapper on something IT already does, to put it simply, but it may not be what the customer really needs. The service catalog, if we think about it a little differently, it should identify services that are based upon what the business wants and needs, giving the customer the power to solve problems and be more productive. That may sound like a minor difference, but it's really looking at the service as an end-to-end activity that begins and ends with the customer. So the one thing, success or failure hangs most on this one critical factor. Here's why this is important. The service catalogs are not new. They've been around for over a decade. And based on my personal experience in that time, I estimate that over a third of enterprises have already implemented at least one version of a service catalog, most with probably pretty poor results. To be successful, the service catalog must be designed from the customer in, not IT out. Now you're probably thinking that's pretty obvious, but the devil is in the details. IT's nature is not to do it this way. It has been proven over and over. So if this time it's going to be different, you can't do it the same way you may have in the past. And that's not a criticism, it's just an observation. Keeping the 5 principles in the forefront of every decision and an activity around the service catalog will help you stay true to your course of customer centricity. So how do we define a service? Well, it's really pretty simple. An outcome that meets a customer's needs well enough to justify the purchase price. And that's it. What is the purchase price? It's not just money. It's the total investment the customer has to make to get the service, time, energy, and money. It also considers ease of use, quality and complexity as the customer moves through the process, just like you do when you are the customer. For example, think about when you were trying to buy something online and the process was poor. Perhaps you were asked to go back and forth between screens and information you'd already entered got dropped. You abandoned the shopping cart, right? Oh, and one other point. I think it's time that we try to stop calling the people we support users and start calling them customers. It may be a little confusing because our organization does have true outside customers, but we think it's worth that risk because it constantly reminds us what our true relationship is. Creating effective services rather than providing fragmented IT silo-based outcomes involves 3 constituencies: the customer, the providers, and the managers. All must be involved and all must have their needs met to create any truly viable and durable service. We recognize that IT wants to deliver great services their customers will love, but they also want to reduce their own complexity to improve efficiency, accuracy, accountability, governance, and speed and quality of service. To achieve these goals, Evergreen follows this approach we call balanced design. If we begin by designing for the customer in a way that they love it and want to use it, we can also get what we want and have it driven by the customer's own self-service actions. Give the customer what they want to get what we need. Here's an example. We have built a highly automated enterprise app store on the ServiceNow platform. The customer can browse available software titles in a beautiful, simple portal, put them in a shopping cart, purchase them, and self-install them at the push of a button through an SCCM integration. At the same time, and here's where it's cool, keyed by the customer's self-service actions, the purchase is approved and allocated to the correct cost code. The software asset management registry is updated, and the software is installed. All of this automatically. So the customer loves it, and IT gets cost management, asset tracking, and software installation, all without doing a single thing. That's kind of what we call balanced design. Give the customer what they want to get what we need. So today, we're focusing on this circle here, customer experience. Always designed from the customer in rather than IT out. This is the highest value principle because we know it is the Achilles heel of service success. If the customer won't use it, we're done. So as I mentioned, we studied a lot of really good sites, really good providers of services and came up with these 4 core design principles. I'm sorry, 5 core design principles. Simple means just that, not hard to understand or do, having few parts, not complex or fancy. While any given screen or the entire service end-to-end may have a lot of details, simple means eliminating every word, button, graphic, or item of any sort that is not totally and directly related to the customer's needs in understanding, choosing, and using the service. If we do that, the customer will see it as simple. So here's a key point of advice. Don't make the customer do our work. The common problem is to give the customer our problem. Why ask the customer to provide information we can glean without asking them? It may take more work on our part, but that is what is required. For example, if they're buying software and we can discover and match their platform automatically with it, then let's not ask them to identify their PC and self-determine if the software works on it. Google is the poster child for simple. I bet you expected to see this one, huh? I mean, it is really pretty hard to beat. It also brings up another point of advice. It's okay not to tell the customer everything to do because it can easily become too much to read and then they may bail out. It's okay for the customer to have to figure out a little bit as long as the outcome is clear. It makes the interaction a little more fun while keeping it really simple. This is another really good example of simple. Immediately, when you look at this, you know the site is about icons. You also know that they're good and they're needed because they're essential. One word carries a lot of weight there. And they're also free and easy to get. Nothing unnecessary is on the page, and your action is simple and direct. You know everything about this site and what to do within 10 seconds. Our next principle is beautiful. Beauty is quality in a thing that gives pleasure to our senses, to our mind, or to our spirit. So I would like to suggest that we try thinking of beautiful more as a function than as an adjective. Since there really is no universal definition of beauty, how can we possibly please everyone? We can't. So while we strive to make every step and screen beautiful by following these principles, the higher order goal is to make the experience beautiful. So beautiful kind of as a function. So here we might want to consider Amazon as an example. While you might not think that any given Amazon.com screen is beautiful, they have virtually perfected the beautiful buying experience as a function, distilled to one click even, which is why so many of us are Amazon Prime members. Apple is a company that espouses beauty in everything they do, where they sit at the intersection of technology and art. And beauty and simplicity are core, sort of inviolable design values for Apple. And like them or not, it's hard to argue with their success. So Apple makes its products such that people want to engage with them, want to interact with them because of that beauty. Just this past weekend, I saw a line of 20 people in Reston, Virginia, waiting outside the Apple store. All of them were laughing and joking, and they were all there to see the new iPhone 6. Now, what's amazing and maybe a little funny is that less than a mile from there are Verizon and AT&T stores with iPhone 6s you can play with and no one in line. That's beauty as a complete experience. This site, Splash, is really one terrific combination. Right away, it's beautiful, right? And it appeals to your emotions quickly and very directly. It's also simple. With a picture and very few words, you instantly know what it's about and can learn more. It may be even better than Apple, huh? This is our third principle, which looks like complete. That's supposed to be complete. I'm not sure why it looks like that. Complete is having all the necessary parts, not lacking or limited in any way. Not requiring more work, entirely done. Everything the customer needs to understand, choose, and use the services there, arranged to facilitate their process. Building a complete experience for a service means two key things. One, for every page, the experience is complete. Everything you need to have or decide on or use the service is there. It has been completely thought out from the customer's perspective. And two, For every step from start to finish, the experience is complete end to end. So 2 key meanings. Now, that second one is very hard for IT to do well because of the way the work is organized in silos. And if a service requires passing through several silos of IT, as it often or usually will, the handoffs between the silos may not be very smooth. The tools to process the work in each silo are different, and there may be redundant requests of the customer to provide data. There may even be a different sort of cultural perspective on what a customer is and what quality of service is supposed to be. So my wife and I recently attended a wedding, and we've not been to one for a while. She likes shoes and loves shopping at Zappos. She says it is a complete experience. For a few weeks before the wedding, shoe boxes began arriving frequently. She told me it was easier than going to the mall. She has more choices, and returns are so simple. So I went to Zappos and typed in wedding shoes, and this is where I landed. Well, this is a complete experience regardless of why you might be going to a wedding. They have the wedding shop for the bride, the wedding party, wedding shoes. They've got it for everybody. I looked at styles in, over here, the services taxonomy. I think that's what this is. And saw slingbacks, which she definitely likes. So I clicked on that. Complete got even more complete. I could easily select size, heel height, and wedding was already pre-selected, so the shoes were on target. There were 24 pairs that met my specs and lots of reviews to help me choose, including whether or not they were true to size and true to width. From there, it was only another step to buy them. And yes, her wedding attended shoes look terrific. I don't know why these are, just a second. Sorry about that. That's the first time I've seen it do that. So the best laid plan. So that is predictive. Predictive is to foretell based on observation or experience. Predictive does go hand in hand with complete. Predictive takes it one step further, introducing possibilities the customer is likely to want next with the option to easily explore them. Predictive is that, that little surprise that pleases the customer, like Steve Jobs on stage introducing the most compelling new product last with the phrase, "And there's just one more thing." So this is a site called Airbnb. That's a fun site where you can rent a room in someone's house or even their whole house in locations around the world. It's only about 6 years old, 2008, and they've created a trusted community marketplace with about 800,000 listings, and they've had 17 million room rentals in that time. Well, since I'm going to Miami Beach soon, I thought I would check out the accommodations. I can filter my search based on price, based on number of guests, type of lodging, and look at the results. But if I don't find what I'm looking for, Airbnb has predicted that I might expand my search radius or even consider an alternative area in Miami, like Coral Gables instead of South Beach. So they put this easily scaled map on the left-hand side. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can refine my search without getting lost and having to revert to something archaic like a zip code search. That's pretty nice. Our last principle is leading. Leading is to guide something or someone along a way. And you can tell as we've talked about these principles fit together, and there's some overlap in different definitions, but it's the balance of all of them together that creates the experience we're looking for. Leading has two contexts for us. One is ensuring that you're linking each step on the service path to the next for the complete service end to end, so the customer is never lost, confused, or frustrated. It also means that at any given point in the experience, you can present the customer with something that is just a bit beyond the actual current experience, but might be of interest to them given who they are, what they like, what they already have, or what they're in the process of getting. Beyond that, there's another part of it, which is the ability to take the customer somewhere you want them to go, like signing up for the company's new BYOD support offering, that is assuming you make it worth their while, or a new single sign-on capability, better for them and better for IT. So I go back to Amazon because they really are a master at this. Here they are showing you other things you might be interested in while you're in the middle of a current shopping experience. This is really a combination of predictive and leading. Note they're highlighting these running shoes. Now, I've never shopped for men's running shoes on Amazon. I recently did so on Sierra Trading Post. So Amazon, armed with this web knowledge, presented me with running shoes, front and center, in the hope I hadn't made a purchase yet. Now we switch to where Amazon wants to lead me. At the #1 position here, right, we're seeing the Fire HD devices. Well, I did buy a Fire years ago when they first came out, but that was a long time ago. And this is not because of that long ago interest. This is what they want to sell to me. Too bad I am kind of an Apple aficionado. Let's go back to Airbnb. So I found a place that I'm interested in Miami, and this woman, Natalie, owns it. Since I want to know a little about who my host is, or might be, I read her bio, and I find we have a lot in common. Natalie is a volunteer of the Alzheimer's Association. She likes organic foods, and cooking is one of her favorite hobbies. Well, she seems pretty cool. So I look down here, and I see, oh, in her wish list, she's got dream homes and vacation places she's selected. And I find a few that interest me outside of Miami, which happen to be in the Airbnb network. So Natalie, in a very soft way, is referring me to other members of the network outside her geography, perhaps without even knowing it. That is a very impressive and subtle use of leading. So here are the key takeaways. After we review the 5 principles of Yelp websites, you can see, like I said, these all fit together most effectively for the customer experience. The first one is to keep it bone simple. And you have to work really hard at this, and you have to continue to work at it to remove absolutely everything that isn't totally essential and stay after it. This will help combat sort of the natural IT tendency to describe every service with a minimally relevant 2,000-word PDF that no one will ever read. The second one is that service catalogs begin with the customer. Don't forget, if the customers don't use it, you fail. Engage them at the start and keep them engaged to combat the natural IT tendency to build things for customers without ever talking to them. I know that sounds preposterous, but we all know it happens a lot. The third one, the 5 design principles must go end to end. As a consumer, and you think about this yourself, you return to sites that offer a poor or inconsistent end-to-end customer experience. Now, well, your customers won't either. It's harder work to create a high-quality service experience end-to-end, but consider the alternative. The customers won't use it, which has been a total waste of time. The next one is practicing balanced design. If you're smart and you take your time to think it through, you can build services in such a way that the customer, through self-service, actually does a lot of your work for you. That is cool, and that's balanced design. The last point here, that service catalogs are transformative. If you focus on the customer and delivering these excellent services, that will get IT across all the silos thinking about services rather than silos, and it will transform IT's relationships with itself. So that's all I have to present to you guys on the 5 principles. And we're now going to go and shift gears and turn this over to Jeff Benedict, and he's going to demonstrate what we have developed in Service Catalog on top of the ServiceNow platform.
Thank you, Don. So let me start with kind of an example here of, and this is a real ServiceNow request form that I think kind of highlights some of what Don talked about in the simple, where the focus is on this particular form is on the provider rather than the customer. So if I go down the form and I just show you quickly, you'll see there's a lot of information that can be potentially filled out by the requester. So obviously from a customer perspective, you know, my reaction would be I would feel overwhelmed. I would likely look for alternatives, you know, whether that be a phone call to the service desk or, you know, phone a friend. And all in all, you know, we want the interface to be customer focused, and we, you know, rather than on the fulfiller, and make sure that it ultimately, you know, meets my needs, but also meets, you know, provides just the information that I actually need to ask or provide to the fulfiller. So let's take a look at another example, or an example self-service portal on the ServiceNow platform that we created to kind of highlight some of these design principles that Don mentioned kind of in action. One of the first things you see in this portal is an example of kind of leading and marketing to your customers with these scrolling headlines. And these are, both dynamic in terms of the data that's behind them or records in ServiceNow, and as they change, the content will change with it. The other aspect is that these are targeted towards the user that's logged on to the portal in terms of what we call a persona definition. And so this table that defines who they are from a persona, it might be an IT professional, a sales engineer, or an HR professional. But based off that information, we're presenting information that would be prescribed or relevant to their job function and their needs. The other thing this page does is it maximizes the use of the real estate. So a lot of the actual navigators and options to do more features are kind of hidden from view, and we kind of keep it as such to where they can always get to that information, but it's kind of also maximizing the full breadth of the real estate on the front and center page. Let me show this feature here real quickly. One of the things that we believe is that IT needs to think differently in how they engage with their customers and provide services. Customers are more willing now to solve their own problems, and when they need help, they expect a more kind of personalized experience. So what we've baked here is kind of the concept of the Apple Genius Bar and applying it to both, IT and other departments within the organization, serving the needs of that customer, where the customer has the ability to chat one-on-one with these different groups, or if the groups are not available during the service hours, they can always schedule an appointment much in the same way you would kind of an Apple Genius Bar kind of appointment. And these are still going to be based off of their service hours of when they're available for either chat or for kind of the one-on-one consultation. Much of a power of an IT customer portal, comes from the shopping cart, where the customer can request these goods and services, and these should be in a, customer-centric manner. And what I mean by that is that the information should be relevant to who they are in their job function. So some of the things that you see here as far as highlights, the features for me are based off of who I am and my role or my persona in the organization. The categories that I see in terms of different items to browse are based off of who I am. And further, I'm also able to see some of my history. So I'm able to see the items that I've ordered recently, as well as the things that I've been commonly looking at. I can always look and, find items through the full catalog through, a search feature, which provides me similar features to what Don showed with the Zappos site to be able to kind of turn on and off different, kind of refiners to find exactly what I'm looking for. One other principle that we like to stress in designing these solutions is setting expectations properly with your customer. And this item kind of provides a bit of context to that in terms of the expectations are set with this in terms of when the item should be, what can I expect to get this item? Is there any financial, do I have to provide anything as far as questions, input, and or dollars in order to get this item? And further, what ultimately am I getting when I get this, when this is delivered at my doorstep? What am I going to get? And obviously this is a product, but you can think of this in the same way if it's a service. What is the exact service that I'm going to deliver? What's going to be set up on my behalf? And when can I expect it to kind of show up on my doorstep? Let me go here for a second. I'll search for this. We also think these portals should be more than, a method to capture this demand, but also provide, insight and information to our customers to help solve their own problems. The tricky part that we're finding now is that more and more of the information that people need in order to solve their problems goes beyond kind of the IT knowledge base and may, come from other areas such as YouTube or community forums or software as a service support sites. So I've seen here what we're providing is kind of what we call a unified search, where we're showing multiple sources of information consolidated into one result set. in one example here, reaching out to YouTube to show some information, but this could also be if I'm a salesperson, I may want to be reaching into Salesforce.com for information, or maybe reaching into SharePoint for information, but ultimately being able to provide contextually relevant search results, not just from our knowledge base, but also from other disparate, maybe community-based sources of information. Kind of along those same lines, if you think about some of the services you provide, some of them may be best provided to your customers through more of a broker kind of exchange. If you take something like BYOD, or bring your device to work, this particular case here, this is a case where the service is we're allowing employees to use their mobile phones that they personally buy and connect them to our network and use them for work-based functions. So the actual support that we're providing to them is loose in the sense that we'll provide them some knowledge content and some general help through our help center, but ultimately they're going to probably get a lot of their help through their peers. And so using things like the live feed or Yammer or Jive or some other collaborative type of tools can be very helpful as a component of the portal for services where the interaction amongst your peers for help as well as for information may be the best way to gain and get insight to help solve your own problems. To kind of align with one of the goals that Don mentioned in terms of being a complete solution, this example portal leverages a single sign-on identity management tool to kind of present the user more than just your typical ITSM kind of touch points, but also provides a place where I can launch my applications that I use on a regular basis. So I can go out to my Salesforce environment, and it's automatically logging me into that app. And further, I can also go log my time in my time tracking system, and it just becomes yet another feature and reason for me to come to the portal for not just checking my status and my tickets or searching the knowledge base, but also to get to some of the things that I use on a regular basis. So one thing I do want to just mention here, when we talk about service catalogs, we talk about the customer experience. The other aspect we talk about is kind of the menu of services, what are our services, what's our strategy behind these services. And so this portal shows a bit of this as a slice here in terms of showing our service taxonomies and the different types of or categories of our services. And if I go into any of these items, I'll actually see the specific service items that are within these categories. But this kind of provides some transparency to the customer in terms of here's what our service is, here's what you can expect as far as ongoing care or ongoing support, how you can engage with IT or the support center for these services, as well as provide a vehicle where they can provide some feedback back as to is this service performing to my expectations or not. So kind of breaking down those channels of both let's provide transparency of here's what we're going to provide for you, but also you can provide us back information as a service provider as a way to improve and continue to evolve the service to better serve our customers. Let's look at another one here for an example. This service has some offerings and commitments that are both some responsive time-based commitments and some that are availability-based commitments. So this is a point where I think our service definitions intersect with our actual service delivery side of it, in that the health of this particular bond trading service is dependent on the health of various components within our organization. So to deliver this service appropriately, we need to ensure we have proper mechanisms and management around all aspects of this particular service, so that if one of these servers or databases were to perform poorly, then the overall metrics and our health of our bond trading service would ultimately go down. And that's represented here in terms of a service map. So this is where kind of our definition of services intersects with our kind of CMDB and definition of what are the components that make up the service. One thing I wanted to highlight is that throughout this whole portal, the users have the capabilities to go out and flag items as favorites, and these can be specific service items. These can be items that they request on a regular basis. It could be a knowledge article that they wanted to come back and read again, or it could even be the the group that I like to contact for chat and or appointments. I can kind of flag any of these records inside the portal as favorites. This is a bit of a feature in terms of the ability to personalize your experience. So as a user, I can come out and I can kind of personalize my search settings, I can personalize my favorites, but certainly you could take that further as well to have more and more cases where you give the user the options to kind of tailor their experience and tailor their options and even their look and feel if desired. Just quickly, a couple more points on this particular portal. Obviously, as a user, I should be able to go out and see my tickets. So one thing to kind of try to keep it simple, as you can see as I hover over these items, it's giving me a quick snapshot of the status of the items. I'm just trying to keep the clicks down to a minimum. You know, if I can reduce the click, if I can show quickly the user what's the most recent update that occurred, what's the current state that this is at without having to drill into the details or go too far, then that's obviously going to hit on that principle of keeping it simple. Same exists here if I look at my pending approvals. I can quickly look at the item details of this, and I can also come out and do my approve or denied directly from the list, just to kind of keep me without having to drill in too far. So let me kind of provide you a couple other examples of some self-service portals. So just shifting gears here. So these are some other recent example portals to give you, I guess, a flavor of different presentations. And these are all built on the ServiceNow framework. In this example, the customer doesn't use a lot of image files and follows more of a simplistic interface of buttons and presentation of the most popular items. Some other screenshots from this same portal include the ticket status screen which has actions for the user to confirm kind of incident resolution, to approve their pending requests, and also to provide feedbacks that are in kind of an awaiting customer status. The other thing you'll see here is the use of a responsive framework in the upper right where we can present the same experience in the same portal on different environments. So if I connect on a smartphone versus a tablet, it's going to adjust the look and feel to be more of a natural experience for those particular environments. Here's another portal with a front end, kind of front and center search option similar to a Google. Also has some alerts as well as some scrolling news and announcements. The chat on the far left was made sticky to try to solicit more chat-based communications over phone or email channels to really kind of make that a prominent feature of the portal so that users would engage with the service desk kind of through a chat versus some of the other means. Search results page, this mirrors a bit of the Zappos, also kind of mirrored off of hotels.com with a refiner that has multiple different categories for refinement where you can find specific articles, items, or service records kind of within the ServiceNow knowledge base. Just another look at the same one. This is the check status screen. And this is pretty common in terms of trying to consolidate these multiple different status items all into one view. Also notice we have some options here for being able to do mass approvals, as well as being able to see the workflow status in kind of more of a FedEx style tracking. Another example here is, this has the same kind of feature with a front and center search box that displays those kind of results in more of a modal format. They also have the capability here to browse the service taxonomy from the home page, as well as see kind of announcements and alerts as they scroll around the top. This is another view from the same portal in terms of being able to see the service design or the service detail, as well as the shopping experience, provide multiple options to either browse by category, filter by kind of word, and ultimately quickly launch and find the items you're trying to order. Kind of last one that worth showing here. A bit more of a dashboard style homepage, kind of with notable updates and some quick links to actions like report an issue and ask a question. This is what the kind of shopping page looks like, which kind of mirrors the Amazon in terms of having featured items, kind of suggestions for you, as well as kind of contextually showing the most popular items for based off of the logged on users' rights. And I guess the last part on this is the screenshot in the bottom right. This is information that's publicly available without logging in. They can still see some notable highlights of things that are happening within the organization, as well as consume security alerts, as well as other training activities. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I hope, hope all in all this was helpful in terms of kind of sparking some thoughts on your own kind of service catalog and customer experience kind of solutions.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And Jeff, I'm going to start with a question for you. Kelly asked this question a couple slides. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Hold on a second. Okay.
I know, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Don.
Okay. So so what are possible next steps here? I don't know. This is kind of it's kind of funny. You probably heard Jeff and I both use the term customer, but we also both use the term user, right? And it's hard, right? Old habits die hard, and so even obviously we're dealing with the same challenges all of us are. But I hope you noticed that. I'll bet you did. So we're working on it too. If you did find this interesting and you wonder, what might be a logical next step, here are a couple of options that we have. If you look kind of on the far right, perhaps you're considering a broader service catalog initiative, but you aren't sure where to start or how to get your team on the same page. We have built a one-day private service catalog workshop, which we run on your site specifically for this, for this need. It educates your team, uncovers your key business drivers, and creates sort of logical, high-level roadmap for going forward. The benefit is that you can literally save months of effort in consensus building and get your program moving fast. Best of all, it is only $3,950, which doesn't go much beyond the cost of travel. If you're interested in what Jeff talked about today in our advanced service catalog solution, perhaps you'd like a deeper dive demo for you or your team to see if it might be a good fit for you, we'd be happy to do that. And last, many looking to improve their customer experience today began with re-engineering the look and the functionality of their ServiceNow content management system. And we offer some very beautiful options for that are more than just skin-deep rebranding. And, where you've got one or two screens that look really nice, but you get below that and it doesn't look the same. And we found that kind of experience where it's just skin-deep does not improve the quality of the customer's overall experience. It's actually pretty jarring for them. So at the end of this webinar, there will be a web form you can use to tell us if you would like us to contact you about any further interest you may have. So that's it for that slide. And Steph, now you can head on into the next one.
Okay, great, because I do have some questions that have come in. So Jeff, I'm going to start with you because it came up towards the end of your presentation. And I believe it was Kelly who had asked, did the hover over box for the My Active Request require custom development?
So the answer being to some degree, it depends on how you define custom. So the CMS is or the content management system in ServiceNow is a kind of web development toolkit. So what we created on that page is our own kind of ticket status screen using kind of the tools that are available to us in ServiceNow, which is writing jelly scripts to create a kind of a UI page. And the actual hover over is some client-side JavaScript from an engine called jQuery. So it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it custom, but it's certainly, it's stuff that we've added onto the platform, or that in this particular case, we added into the platform using the toolkits that are available to us in ServiceNow, but you're not going to find that exact page and that exact experience, say, if you just deployed it out of the box ServiceNow instance.
Okay, great. And Jeff, I think this question is probably for you as well. It's from Lisa, and let me read it to you from the screen. It says, we find our customers do not understand the difference between request and incident, yet I see several examples where you show request a service or report an incident. How do you get customers to start down the right path?
So yeah, and we do have that tends to be a common struggle, especially for a lot of people moving from technology tools where there isn't I guess a strong ITIL-based establishment where there's a difference between the incidents and requests, and they have a lot of just ticket in, ticket out kind of mechanisms. So you will see in some of the screenshots I showed a lot of the common things that we do, like even the demo I showed, the My Request page. is a consolidation of both incidents and requests for the user. And that tends to be more common of let's kind of keep from a status screen, all of my kind of items that are awaiting or I care about from a status perspective, all in a consolidated list, tends to be a very common activity. And I would also say from an entry point perspective, if that's a challenge, if understanding the difference between request or I guess submitting a problem request is a challenge from submitting I guess a service request, then I would kind of bake them into the same entry point in terms of I need help or I need information as this common entry point, and then use either more wizards or questions to kind of drill in is something not functioning to your satisfaction or something you need, and ultimately kind of branching from there to make that determination. And ultimately, when we fulfill it, it'll probably make more sense to fulfill those that are break fix, service degradation things in the incident management application, and those things that are new services to be deployed in the request and request management applications. But if there's some confusion from a customer perspective, then our intent would be to try to mask or try to align with our customers' needs in those situations and not confuse them further.
Okay, great. And Jeff, I think this one's for you, possibly you and Don. It says, can you explain how your CMS re-engineering engagement is different than those offered by other ServiceNow partners?
Yeah, and Don kind of mentioned just a minute ago in that, our goal with our CMS projects, the content management projects, is to kind of complete all these design principles, have a complete experience. And so I will say, and I can't speak 100% for, I guess, competitors of ours or other ServiceNow providers out there and how exactly they approach these content managements, but my perception is that a lot of them will focus on the home page, maybe focus on a couple other pages, and then as you drill in, you're kind of back to common ServiceNow look and feel. So you may find yourself back in the native service catalog that you'd find in the standard UI. You may find yourself back into your standard ticket screens. And our goal is really to kind of provide that complete experience, and that may necessitate kind of configuring a page or configuring pages that kind of, I guess, duplicate some of those native functionalities.
Yeah, I'll add to that just a little bit. Like Jeff said, our point is not necessarily to compare to other partners from that perspective, but we feel like if we don't solve the problem correctly, that it's not done. If it's not end-to-end and it's not deep enough, the customer experience is a jarring kind of experience, And that from a customer's perspective, the quality of the service is always end-to-end. It's always the entire experience, not part of it.
Okay, great. Don, this probably goes to you. The question is, we don't have a lot of, quote, beautiful design skills in IT operations. So how can we balance this out?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and recognition is the first part of it. One idea would be to engage the web design skills from your marketing department and get them on your team. While they don't understand ITSM, that's really not as important. They will definitely have strong customer-centric design skills. Then it becomes like two halves of a coin when you combine your knowledge and their knowledge. And this is, actually how we approach our CMS re-engineering engagements. We bring both skill sets.
Okay, Don, I think this is for you as well. It says, like you mentioned, our first service catalog wasn't very successful. Can you give us a little guidance beyond the 5 principles you mentioned?
Okay. Well, you can start by first creating a beautiful customer portal, and you can list the core services you can offer with consistent details and attributes about each service. And that doesn't take a terrific amount of energy and time. It's really creating a beautiful front door to start, right? Then you can do that, and then step 2, you make sure every service has a delivery expectation that you can meet today. And if it, for example, if it takes you 2 weeks on average, set the expectation at 3, and then make sure that you meet it. As long as the customer knows what to expect before placing their order, and then you meet that expectation, they'll be okay. They should generally be happy. Then beyond that, now you've got, all these services out there that might be delivered in an old fashion. You've got a new front end and portal, but you can re-engineer and sort of automate and streamline the service delivery of those services behind the portal at a pace your organization can stand. Because it does take time and energy. It is business process re-engineering. Not terribly complex, but it still is work. So after you've done this, for a given service, the only difference the customer sees is, that service used to take 3 weeks. Now it can be delivered. Now it can be delivered in 2 hours, and certainly, they won't mind that.
So Don, we've got a couple more questions. This is from Larissa, who asks, what is the average duration of a service catalog engagement? And I don't know if you want to differentiate between like the CMS that we've been talking about and other service catalog engagement, but that's the question for you.
Okay, and that's obviously that's a pretty broad question, right? And it depends on how deep and broad you want to go in defining services and what your sort of, what your supported circle of service activities. A lot of organizations will start, at the simplest place, which may be, hey, we've got a service catalog that we've already put in place and it's not very attractive, so we'd like to re-engineer it from a look and feel standpoint. And that starts kind of that journey moving forward. Then, the next thing you could, and that can be done within a month, right? That's not a very big deal. Then if you were going to do, if you're going to do a sort of a quick start on the service catalog, and we have those and we've done it, you have to be very careful as to what your expectations are and how far you go with it. But, you would be looking at certainly a couple of months to do that, and it would leave lots of other things in your mind that you want to do and continue to develop, right? But it would be something that you would be able to do in 2 to 3 months and be happy, and that you might have a reasonable outcome from it. When we do sort of whole transformations of delivering services instead of delivering silos, and it's really a transformative service-enabled thing with lots of automation and re-engineering, the ROIs are terrific, but those can be 3-phase programs that can take 1.5 years, 2 years even, if that's the appetite for an organization. They want to do it as a transformational kind of thing. The coolest thing about it, though, is that we do that. It's not the old way. It's not like client server used to be. It's much more rapid, and we use an agile consulting approach, and we use agile from the technology. And the technology, it doesn't take very long. We just did an initial strategic engagement for a customer where we showed them the first draft of their future service portfolio catalog environment in 8 days. So it's amazing how fast you can actually begin to do that and then iterate upon it. So at the end of the engagement, not only do they have a roadmap, a strategic roadmap in multiple phases, so they can guide their direction and what they're doing, and they also have a solution working, a prototype that has a lot of validity and a lot of reality. And it's not, it's not like client server days where that prototype was off and throwaway. No, that prototype becomes the basis for the next phase going into production. So it's a much more enjoyable outcome, in a short period of 6 weeks in doing that activity set. So that's probably a long answer for a short question.
Thanks, Don. That wraps up our questions.
Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll continue to bring interesting topics that out in the webinar series as we go forward. If you have ideas for topics that you'd like to see covered, feel free to reply to our invites with emails, and we'll reach out to you and talk about it. So that's it. Then I think we're probably done. We saved you 5 minutes.
I think we're all set, Don. Thank you very much, and thank you to Jeff. And all the attendees will receive an email later today with a link to download the slides as well as the WebEx recording of this event. So thank you again for joining us.